The village of Arranmore slept under a faint silver moonlight, its narrow stone lanes twisting like old veins through clusters of small clay homes. Smoke rose from the last of the evening fires, curling up through the chill night air, carrying with it smells of burnt wood, lentil stew, and the faint hint of earth after an early drizzle. In one of those dimly lit streets, a boy named Lyron slipped through shadows like a whisper. He was only 12, but the world had already shaped him, hardened him, and tested him in ways many grown men had never known. Lyron wasn't born a thief. No child ever is. But hunger, loneliness, and desperation have a way of molding innocence into something sharp-edged and restless. His father had vanished years ago, some say he left, others say the sea swallowed him. His mother, Mara, worked endlessly as a washerwoman, her fingers cracked and white from the cold water in which she scrubbed clothes for families far richer than her own. They lived in a single-room hut at the edge of the village, its roof patched with straw that barely survived the storm seasons. Tonight, Lyron's eyes were fixed on the baker's shop. The warm glow inside made his stomach rumble painfully. He had eaten nothing but boiled rice since the day before. Inside, an old tray of leftover bread sat on the counter, bread that would be thrown away by morning. He convinced himself that taking what would be wasted was not truly stealing. Just a loaf, he whispered. Just enough so Mother doesn't go to bed hungry again. He slipped inside through the back, moving quietly, breath shallow, heart pounding. The wooden floor creaked faintly beneath his bare feet, and for a moment, he froze. When no one stirred, he grabbed a loaf, warm and soft, and clutched it to his chest. But fate rarely allows such moments of triumph to go unpunished. A sudden hand gripped his shoulder. "Caught you," growled the baker, a heavy-set man with flowers still clinging to his beard. Lyron tried to pull away, but the man was stronger. He dragged the boy to the front door and declared loudly, "Another night thief. These pests keep breeding in this village." Villagers gathered, drawn by the commotion. Lanterns lit, faces blurred in Lyron's vision from fear and shame. Some recognized him. Whispers rose like a swarm of insects. "That's Mara's boy. I knew he'd turn out like this." Stealing? At his age? Lyron's throat tightened. The baker was already calling for the constable when a breathless voice cut through the noise. "Stop!" Mara pushed her way through the crowd, her hair loose, her eyes swollen from exhaustion and fear. "Please," she begged, "let the boy go. He's a thief," the baker spat. "Next time he'll steal something bigger." Mara knelt before her son, her hands trembling as she touched his face. "Why, Lyron? Why would you shame us like this?" He wanted to say everything, that he was hungry, that he saw her skipping her own meals, that he wanted just one night where she didn't collapse from fatigue. But the words stayed trapped, locked behind guilt. The villagers fumed, argued, debated. Finally the constable decided, let the boy go with a warning. But if he's caught again, punishment will follow. They were allowed to leave, but the walk home was heavy with silence. The lantern Mara carried swayed with each trembling step. When they reached their hut, she placed the lantern down, sat by the old wooden stool, and motioned for Lyron to sit. He dreaded the scolding he knew was coming. Instead, she spoke quietly, painfully. "Lyron, when you steal, the world does not only blame you. It blames me. A mother is judged by the actions of her child. When you did this tonight, you didn't just take a loaf of bread. You took my honor." Her voice cracked. She had always been strong, stronger than a storm, stronger than heartbreak. But tonight, she looked fragile. "When people look at me now, they won't see Mara the washerwoman. They'll see Mara, mother of the village thief." Lyron felt something inside him break. "I didn't want that, Mother. I only wanted food." "I know," she whispered. "But hunger can be survived. Losing your character cannot." She didn't strike him. She didn't shout. Her disappointment was heavier than any punishment. Days passed, but the shame lingered like a shadow. People gave Lyron suspicious looks even when he simply walked by. Some mothers pulled their children closer. Some shopkeepers hid their goods when he entered. Mara endured it silently, but the pain etched itself deeper on her face. One afternoon, Mara caught him trying to slip a small silver cup into his pocket, something worthless and old, belonging to a merchant who had left it unattended. Her heart sank. She had thought the lesson sunk in, but the seed had only grown deeper roots. She grabbed his wrist so hard he yelped. "Lyron! What are you doing?" He looked at her, eyes wet with frustration. "I don't know. I just did it." And that was the truth. Sometimes the habits we form out of desperation begin to feel natural, even when the desperation is gone. Mara dragged him outside the house, sat him down under the neem tree, and knelt in front of him. Then, in a moment he would never forget, she took his hand, and placed one of his fingers between her teeth. Before he understood what she was doing, she bit him. Hard. He screamed, pulling back, tears welling instantly in his eyes. "Why did you do that?" She looked at him with more sadness than anger. "Because pain teaches what words never can. The feeling you have in your hand right now, that is what every mother feels in her heart when her child goes down the wrong path. If I don't stop you now, your path will end in darkness, prison, misery, or death. I would rather hurt your hand today than lose you forever." Lyron's harsh breathing slowed. The sharp pain in his finger throbbed with each heartbeat, but her words were sharper still. The village's whispers, the baker's anger, even the humiliation of being caught, none of it compared to the pain in his mother's voice. That night he lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. He thought of all the villagers he had seen punished for theft, the man beaten for taking chickens, the boy dragged away by guards for stealing coins, the young man who never returned after being sent to the city prison. He imagined his mother standing alone, waiting, suffering because of him. And for the first time, he truly understood, stealing didn't only take from others. It destroyed everything he loved. The next morning, Lyron rose before dawn. He swept the front yard, fetched water from the well, helped his mother carry clothes to the washing stones near the river. He said nothing, but the change in him was unmistakable. Mara noticed but did not speak, worried the shift was temporary. But it wasn't. Weeks passed. Lyron became quieter, kinder, more thoughtful. He took small jobs helping farmers with their harvest, delivering packages for the carpenter, carrying water buckets for elderly villagers. He even returned to the bakery one morning and apologized to the baker, bowing deeply. The baker, startled but softened, offered him a fresh bun and said, "If you want bread, work for it. I always need help sweeping." The boy nodded gratefully. Months flowed like the river near their home. Lyron's reputation slowly changed. The same shopkeepers who once glared now smiled cautiously. Children played with him again. Mara's shoulders relaxed for the first time in years. But the true test of change came unexpectedly. One evening, as Lyron was walking home from the fields, he saw two boys, older, mean-eyed, cornering a fruit seller's stand. They laughed as they snatched apples, shoving them into sacks. The fruit seller, an old man with weak legs, tried to stop them, but they pushed him to the ground. Lyron froze. A few months ago, he might have joined them or at least walked away. But something stirred inside him now, something new and strong. He stepped forward. "Leave him alone." The boys laughed. "Or what, thief boy?" The old shame pricked his heart, but it no longer controlled him. "Or you'll answer to me." The confrontation escalated. A shove, a grappling of arms, dust flying. Lyron was smaller, but determination made him fierce. The noise drew attention. People rushed forward. The older boys fled, leaving the stolen apples scattered on the ground. The fruit seller looked at Lyron with gratitude trembling in his eyes. People change, boy. You proved that today. That night, Mara heard the story before Lyron even reached home. When he walked through the door, bruised but proud, she didn't speak. She simply took his face in her hands and kissed his forehead. Tears fell silently down her cheeks, soaking into his hair. "Mother," he whispered, "I will never shame you again." Years passed, and Lyron grew into a young man respected by everyone in Arranmore. He became known for his honesty, his strength, and his willingness to help anyone in need. Where there had once been suspicion, there was now trust. Where there had been shame, there was pride. And Mara, who had once bitten his hand in desperation, became the mother of the most honorable youth in the entire village. Whenever someone asked Lyron how he changed, he would smile softly, touch the faint scar on his finger, and say, "My mother gave me the lesson I needed, not the one I wanted." Life continued, full of storms and seasons, but mother and son stood firm, bound not by fear or punishment, but by love powerful enough to transform even the darkest path into one of redemption. The seasons rolled forward like pages in a book, each leaving its mark on Arranmore and on Lyron's growing life. Winter came with a brutal cold that sank into bones and made the river stiffen like glass. In the early mornings, mist curled in silent waves through the narrow lanes, and every breath hung briefly in the air before fading. Mara worked harder than ever, washing clothes in icy water that numbed her fingers until she could barely feel them. Lyron saw this and felt a tug of guilt. Though he no longer stole, his past lingered in small memories that haunted him, reminders of how close he once came to losing everything he loved. He pushed himself to help more. Before dawn he gathered firewood from the forest edges. After school he worked for the baker, cleaning trays, sweeping ashes from the brick oven, and helping shape dough. The baker, who once caught him stealing, now spoke to him with warmth. "You're becoming a fine young man," he'd say as he patted Lyron's shoulder. "Your mother raised you well." Those words mattered to Lyron more than he ever admitted. One evening, a fierce winter storm struck the village. Winds howled like restless spirits, rattling doors and sending dust swirling into the air. Lyron and Mara huddled close to their small fire, wrapped in a single thick blanket they shared. The thatched roof creaked dangerously with each gust, but somehow, it held. Outside, the storm pounded relentlessly. Through the roar of the wind, Lyron suddenly heard a faint, desperate cry. He sat up. At first he thought it was just the wind, but then it came again, higher, shakier, unmistakably human. "Mother," he whispered, "someone is outside." Mara tried to hold him back. "No, Lyron. The storm is too strong." But the cry came again, closer now, laced with pain. Lyron rose to his feet. "Someone needs help. I'll be quick." Before she could protest again, he wrapped himself in a wool shawl and pushed open the door. The wind slapped him instantly, nearly pulling the shawl away. Rain and dust stung his face. He shielded his eyes and moved forward, boots sinking into muddy ground. The cold gnawed into him, but he pushed on, following the voice. He found a young girl curled beneath a tree, shivering. She was maybe 8 years old, dressed in soaked clothes, her small hands purple from the cold. Lyron knelt beside her. "Hey! Can you hear me?" She blinked slowly, barely conscious. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms and carried her back through the storm toward his home. The wind fought him with every step, but something stronger pushed him forward, a growing instinct to protect, the same one that had awakened inside him the day he stood up for the fruit seller. When he finally stumbled into the hut, Mara gasped. "Oh heavens, Lyron, who is she?" "I don't know," he panted. "I found her outside, freezing." Mara immediately grabbed dry blankets and warmed water by the fire. Together, they wrapped the girl, rubbing her arms and hands until color slowly returned. Mara placed warm broth to the girl's lips. After a few moments, the child whispered, voice trembling, I got lost. Mama told me to wait by the well, but I couldn't find my way back. Where is your home? Mara asked gently. The girl's eyes welled up. Near the North Road. Mara exchanged a glance with Lyron. The North Road was nearly half an hour away on a normal day. Through this storm, it was dangerous even for grown men. The girl slept in their home that night, curled near the fire like a trembling kitten. Lyron couldn't sleep. Instead, he sat beside the fire, watching the flames flicker across her small face. She reminded him of himself years ago, cold, scared, unsure of the world. He felt something like an old wound reopening, but this time, it transformed into a strong vow to always be better than he once was. By morning, the storm calmed. The girl woke frightened but safe. Mara prepared a small meal for her, stroking her hair tenderly. You're safe now, she whispered. Lyron volunteered to take her home despite the bitter cold. The girl held his hand tightly as they walked. The road was slippery, but the world was brighter that morning. Sunlight filtered through melting patches of clouds, turning the wet earth golden. When they reached her home, her mother burst into tears and embraced her tightly. The woman grabbed Lyron's hands and kissed them with gratitude. You saved my daughter, she cried. How can we ever repay you? Lyron simply shook his head. I only did what anyone should. But not everyone would have, and the villagers knew that. Word spread quickly. Stories of Lyron's past mistakes faded even further as new stories replaced them, stories of his courage, kindness, and willingness to help strangers without expecting anything in return. In time, villagers began approaching him not with suspicion but with admiration. The carpenter trusted him to deliver tools and payments. The farmer trusted him with livestock. The shopkeepers no longer watched him nervously, instead, they smiled when he passed. And Mara. Mara walked with her head held slightly higher each day. But the world does not move forward without tossing new challenges in the path of anyone trying to do good. One afternoon, as Lyron walked past the village square, he overheard two men whispering near the fountain. Heard about the merchant's caravan, one said. They were robbed near the valley. Took everything, gold, spices, cloth. And the guards, the second man asked. Wounded. The thieves escaped into the forest. Lyron paused. Robbery had been rare in the region. Villagers were frightened. If the roads became unsafe, their entire economy would suffer. Later that evening, a group of men gathered to discuss forming a search party. But fear kept many from volunteering. Lyron watched them argue, and he felt something stir inside him again, the same impulse that drove him to protect the fruit seller and the lost girl. He stepped forward. I'll go. The crowd turned. The constable raised an eyebrow. You? You're barely 16. Maybe so, Lyron said, but I know these forests better than most. I can help track them. Some murmured. Some doubted him. But then the fruit seller, the baker, and several farmers stood beside him. He's brave, one said. He's honest, said another. He found my daughter in a storm, the woman from the North Road added. Trust him. And so, with their support behind him, Lyron joined the search party. Night had just fallen when they entered the dense forest, lanterns swinging and boots rustling through dried leaves. The wind whispered through the branches above, and occasional owl cries added a sense of foreboding. But Lyron stayed alert, scanning for signs of movement, broken twigs, fresh footprints, disturbed soil. After 2 hours, he spotted something near a cluster of thick bushes, a trail of fresh boot prints leading deeper into the woods. He signaled to the others and moved quietly forward. Soon they heard voices, gruff, careless men laughing around a dying campfire. The thieves. There were 3 of them, each armed with knives and crude clubs. Their stolen goods piled nearby, bags of spices, cloth rolls, and a wooden chest filled with coins. The constable whispered, "We'll surround them. Lyron, take the left side with me." Lyron nodded. His heart pounded, but not from fear, this time it was from a fierce sense of responsibility. He knew too well how easy it was to fall into darkness, and he couldn't allow others to do harm unchecked. The fight erupted swiftly. The thieves leapt to their feet, grabbing their weapons. The constable tackled one. Villagers wrestled another to the ground. The third ran toward Lyron, swinging a knife wildly. Lyron reacted instinctively. He dodged the first swing, stumbled back, then steadied himself. The thief charged again. Lyron grabbed a fallen branch and blocked the knife. Sparks flew as metal scraped wood. The thief snarled and pushed harder, trying to overpower him. Lyron gritted his teeth. He remembered his mother's words, "If I don't stop you now, I may lose you forever." Strength surged through him. He twisted his body, knocked the knife aside, and kicked the thief's legs. The man staggered. Lyron pinned him to the ground, holding the branch across his chest until help arrived. When the thieves were finally tied and disarmed, the villagers cheered. The constable clapped Lyron's back. "You have courage, and a good heart. Arranmore is lucky to have you." Those words warmed Lyron in a way that the winter fire never could. When they returned to the village, the crowd gathered to welcome them. Mara waited near the front, her face pale with worry. But when she saw Lyron unharmed, relief washed over her like a wave. She embraced him tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks despite her efforts to hide them. "You could have died," she whispered. "But I came back," he replied softly. "And I came back better." Later that night, as they sat by the fading fire, Mara looked at him with eyes filled with pride. "Lyron, you've become a man stronger than any I've ever known. I feared losing you to darkness once. Now, I fear nothing, because you've found your path." Lyron smiled faintly, touching the small bite scar on his finger, a reminder of a painful past and a powerful lesson. And in that quiet winter night, under a sky filled with stars scattered like silver dust, Lyron vowed he would always protect his village, honor his mother, and remain on the path he fought so hard to rediscover. Spring crept over Arranmore slowly, like a shy child peeking around the corner of winter. The leaves returned first, tiny green buds trembling on branches still cold from months of frost. Then came the birds, the sparrows, the robins, the migrating cranes, all filling the sky with a kind of music that felt like hope itself. The river thawed and began to flow again, carrying with it the shimmer of sunlight on rippling water. With spring came new work, new energy, and for Lyron, new responsibilities. At 16, he was no longer just a village boy trying to outrun a troubled past. He had transformed into someone the people looked up to, someone the children trusted, someone the elders turned to when they needed strong hands and a steady heart. Every morning, as he walked through the village square, people greeted him warmly. Mothers smiled at him. Old men nodded in respect. Shopkeepers waved. Even travelers passing through the village could see he was someone the people regarded with quiet pride. But despite the warmth of spring and the kindness of his neighbors, something restless stirred within Lyron. He felt it first when working by the riverside, watching the current sweep past as though carrying stories from far places. He felt it again when he helped the blacksmith, his muscles aching from the labor, yet his mind drifting to thoughts of the world beyond Arranmore. There was so much he didn't know, so much he hadn't seen, cities, mountains, oceans, people from distant lands. He didn't speak of this restlessness to his mother. Mara had spent years fearing the world outside their quiet village. She had lost a husband to its uncertainty. Losing her son to it, even by his own choice, was a thought she had never allowed herself to imagine. And Lyron, though he felt the pull of adventure, loved her deeply. The memories of her biting his finger, of her trembling when he was caught stealing, of her tears when he returned from the forest, those memories shaped him, grounded him. One afternoon, while helping the carpenter fix a broken wagon wheel, Lyron overheard two travelers talking near the market. They spoke of a distant port city named Verith, a place sparkling with trade and opportunity. Ships from across the ocean docked there every day. Merchants from dozens of kingdoms traded spices, fabrics, jewels, and stories. The travelers spoke of bustling crowds, music on the streets, and a kind of life far more vibrant than anything Lyron had ever known. He paused mid-swing of the hammer and listened, captivated. One traveler noticed him and grinned. "Ever been outside this village, boy?" Lyron shook his head. "You should go one day," the traveler said. "There's a whole world out there, dangerous sometimes, yes, but full of wonder." His words stayed in Lyron's mind long after the travelers left. Days later, when Mara noticed Lyron staring out over the hills instead of helping her hang clothes, she asked quietly, "What weighs on your mind, my son?" He hesitated, then said, "Do you think there's more for me than this village?" Mara's hands froze around the wet cloth she held. Her eyes softened with worry. "Lyron, this village needs you. And I." He gently touched her hand and smiled. "I know, Mother. I'm not leaving. I'm only thinking." That answer eased her, but only slightly. She could sense the stirrings of something deeper inside him, something beyond her control. As weeks passed, Lyron tried to ignore the pull of the outside world, focusing instead on helping the villagers. But fate, unpredictable as always, soon offered him a challenge that would shape his destiny even more profoundly. It began on a clear afternoon when a young boy, no older than 10, ran into the village square, breathless and terrified. His clothes were torn, his cheeks streaked with dirt and tears. "They took my brother," he cried. Villagers rushed to him. "Who took him?" someone asked. "Bandits. Near the river. They grabbed him and took him into the woods." Panic spread through the crowd. The memories of the caravan attack were still fresh. People remembered how dangerous even a single bandit could be. No one wanted to relive that fear. The constable stepped forward. "We'll gather a few men." But he froze when he saw Lyron already tightening the rope around his belt, preparing without hesitation. "Lyron," the constable warned, "we don't know how many bandits there are. This is not something for a boy." Lyron's voice was steady. "I'm not a boy anymore." Before anyone could argue, he asked the frightened child, "Which way did they go?" The boy pointed toward the eastern woods. Lyron nodded, then turned to the gathered villagers. "I'll bring him back." And with that, he dashed off toward the forest. The trees grew thick quickly, their leaves forming a canopy that filtered sunlight into soft, shifting patterns on the forest floor. Lyron moved swiftly but carefully, listening for any sign of the kidnapped boy. He followed broken branches, trampled grass, and fresh footprints, signs that were becoming as familiar to him as the lines on his own hands. After nearly half an hour, he heard voices. He crept behind a rocky slope and peered through the bushes. 3 bandits sat around a small fire. One held the frightened boy by the arm. The bandit laughed as the child trembled. Lyron felt heat rise in his chest. He hated bullies. He hated seeing the powerful hurt the weak. It reminded him too much of what he used to be, a boy capable of taking from others because he was desperate. But now he knew what such acts did to people's hearts. And he was determined to stop them. He moved silently behind the nearest tree and picked up a small rock. With precise aim, he threw it at a cluster of bushes opposite him. The sound snapped the bandits' attention instantly. "What was that?" one muttered, drawing a rusted blade. "Probably just an animal," another replied. Lyron threw a second rock, this one closer. The bandits rose, weapons ready. "Go check," the leader ordered. 2 men moved toward the sound, leaving the third alone with the boy. This was Lyron's moment. He slipped behind the lone bandit and struck him behind the knee with a thick branch. The man collapsed with a grunt. Before he could shout, Lyran seized his arm and twisted it behind his back, forcing him down. "Run!" Lyran whispered to the boy. The child scrambled to his feet and sprinted toward the trees. The fallen bandit shouted, "He's escaping." The other two turned and ran back toward the camp. Lyran braced himself. He wasn't armed, but he had courage, and sometimes, courage is the only weapon needed. The first bandit charged with a dagger raised. Lyran dodged, grabbed the man's wrist, and slammed his elbow into his ribs. The man gasped and stumbled back. The second bandit swung at him with a club. Lyran ducked, the club scraping the bark of a tree. He rolled to the side, grabbed a fallen branch, and blocked the next strike. The impact rattled his bones, but he kept his grip. He fought fiercely, using speed over strength, determination over fear. The struggle lasted only minutes, though it felt like hours. When the bandits finally retreated into the woods, wounded, angry, and humiliated, Lyran staggered to his feet, breathing heavily. He found the boy hiding behind a tree, crying in relief when he saw Lyran unharmed. "Are you hurt?" Lyran asked. The boy shook his head. "Then let's go home." When they returned to the village, people rushed toward them, shouting, crying, praising, thanking. The child's mother fell to her knees and kissed Lyran's hands just as the woman from the winter storm once had. The constable approached him slowly, solemnly. "Lyran. I think it is time we acknowledge something. You are no longer a boy we watch over. You have become someone we rely on. Someone this village needs." The villagers murmured in agreement. Mara stood nearby, tears shining in her eyes, this time from pride, not fear. That night, after the celebrations ended and the lamps were extinguished, she sat beside Lyran near the fire. The glow lit her face softly, revealing the lines of hardship and the warmth of a mother's endless love. "You've grown into everything I prayed you would," she whispered. "You saved a child today. You saved many people before today. And you saved yourself long before that." Lyran looked at her, his heart heavy with love. "Mother, everything I am, everything I do, begins with you." She touched his cheek gently. "Just promise me one thing, my son. Never let pride pull you away from who you are." "I won't," he promised. "I know what darkness feels like. I won't return to it." As the fire crackled softly and the moon cast its silver light over Arranmore, Lyran felt something shift inside him, a sense of destiny forming, a path unfolding. The world beyond the village still called to him, whispering with possibilities. But tonight, he was exactly where he belonged, beside his mother, in the heart of the village that once feared him and now trusted him completely.